It's rolling.
Okay, first recording.
Go. Greetings, my brother.
Greetings.
It's been a pleasure actually being with you, coming around with you, and basically sharing the experience with you.
No, we spoke the other time. So when I'm here, we'll do it.
Yeah, brilliant.
So here it's done.
Fantastic. I appreciate that.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. Just for people who have not seen my brother, I'm sure you have. Just introducing, this is my brother, Maponga Joshua. All right, he's going to introduce himself to you just for you to get a little insight as to who he is. And my brother's in the UK at the moment on a tour, celebrating the African Liberation Day, which was last week. But obviously, we had an event yesterday where he was there. So, my brother, your experience so far in the UK, what's your thoughts in terms of the interactions and the people you meet?
Well, the UK is a concrete jungle. It's a concrete jungle, and yes, people are making money here, and lots of technologies that are around, facilities and other things that people can admire. But I can frankly say that the quality of life in the UK, quality of relationships, quality of time, quality of air, quality of food, quality of family and social interaction, and I think it's very, very low. And at the end of the day, the human being does not necessarily function in the abundance of money, and they function in the abundance of a good social life. So depression, and opportunistic diseases, hypertension, diabetes, and malnutrition issues. I mean, people have big stomachs here that are full of food but empty of health.
Yeah, I agree.
And then if you're asking me a full assessment of UK, beautiful. I've lived here. I lived here once for 5 years or so. So there's nothing much I could say. Something new has happened. This is like a museum for me. Buildings must be maintained the way they are. Streets are too small and tiny. But otherwise, and the weather, of course, I brought good weather.
Yeah, you brought good weather actually.
Yes,
it's actually brilliant.
I brought lots of warm clothes, you know. But the tour has been very eventful, enlightening, for me, spiritual.
Yeah.
It almost felt like it's a plug-in into the stalwarts and the pioneers of the Pan-African movement, people that I never got to meet. But when you meet the people that met them and the people that have interacted with them and then they share that experience, I almost felt like it's passing on of a legacy. And now what made this one unique also is the interaction between Africa and the United Kingdom to create that symbiosis. And so it was quite nice.
It is needed actually, because I feel sometimes like in the UK we kind of taking a back seat. Because I could see, of my experience anyway, I could see the Americans a lot more active in terms of the Pan-African movement. But the UK are kind of, probably because the English way, they're kind of taking a back seat. And you plug it into that, I think, it makes a lot of sense. So in terms of, in terms of the spiritual consciousness level, how do you find it? What kind of, in terms of the UK?
There's quite a lot happening in the Black community, the Rastafarian community, and the Caribbean community in their own way. Those that have been brought up properly in the Caribbean and had a chance of experiencing their grandmothers, either through the voodoo practices or through the cultural practices, have been able to preserve and maintain some of that cultural practice here. And some come sucking, it's a guesswork. You really want to be African, but you've almost forgotten what it means to be African. And then those who want to become African have become Pan-Africanists. And in their Pan-Africanism, they have a concept of democracy, which they think will work in a Pan-Africanistic way. And then you find so that it has been almost a diluted version. So in as much as you desire freedom, but keep the chains, please. Okay, cut here. No, my hands can now move freely, but just keep the chains on. I mean, that's where the religion comes in. That's where the colonial governance systems comes in. We are Pan-Africanists, but we are still buying on high street. We are still deep into the medical systems. We are still deep into the insurances and the construction, architecture. of the colonialists to such an extent that even our diet is gone to the left.
Yeah.
So in the midst of being Pan-Africanism, the question is, must it remain as an ideological, intellectual conversation, or it must actually translate itself into being Pan-Africanist? Maybe has to do more with redefining indigeneity, contextualization, and authentic Afro-centric or Afro-centered lives. And now that we're here, some of us are in Africa, and the opening up of corridors of trade and sale, what do we lose to? I love the Ghanaian community and the Nigerian community, the Chinese and the Indians. You guys are doing very well, because you would find that wherever there is a China city, China is there. From dragons to noodles to food, they literally create their own communities. And I think we have seen Brixton a couple of years when I was here, that the Nigerian community was concentrated over there. The Jamaicans are concentrated over there. But when you get there, is it good enough just to have a Jamaican corner shop where you can buy a banana and ginger? Or we rather own that space totally, so that when it comes to being called a China city, it's a China city.
We control it.
You know, and I think that's where the Pan-Africanist has failed. He has created too many ideologies, but has not translated those ideologies into physical,
tangible action
structures, schools, our own clinics, our own saloons we have, our own food outlets, our own fashion outlets, our own ideological institutions, our own entertainment, our own stadiums, maybe our own sports. And then the idea, like what the Afro-American was doing in the South before it was destroyed. And for me, that has been the weakest leg on the Pan-Africanism, where the active participation in the economic development and social transformation has been lagging behind. And most of our people are almost consumed by the very system that they're trying to run away from.
Yeah, and he's saying that, and this is basically, personally, this is my struggle, because I hate capitalism. So how do you balance capitalism to be truly Afrocentric in doing stuff? Because that's something I'm battling, because like I said, we need money to do particular things. And then the bridge gap and the gap bridging between having the funds to do stuff. How do we bridge that? Because that's basically a lot of people struggle with that. Because like I said, I'm going to be back home soon, and you need, that's the advice I give from people. You need to have something. You need to have something.
The struggle is real. Even in capitalism, you are sponsoring capitalism, because you take your money that you work for tirelessly for a month, and you take that money and you donate it to the same system. So it starts off with you're going to buy a house in London, you like it or not. You're going to buy a house in London. You're going to buy this. You're going to buy this. The question is, even if I would come to London here, things are exorbitant. But I would surely have to start fighting some of the lords here and see how I can also have access to physical land, because it's only having the means of production that you can begin to create a subculture where lifestyle can begin to develop and come afore. So how do you deal with capitalism? You deal with it from its roots. And that takes us to the 7 concepts that I've always been thumping about. Number 1, we needed to start looking at to move away from capitalism, because it's a web of well-knitted, it's almost like a coiling snake that is well connected. It's a spider.
Entangled.
It's a spider. So in as much as you can remove one string, it doesn't mean that you've actually attended to everything else. So some have said, no, Ponga, you're getting confused. You must leave Jesus alone. I said, no, man, this is just one. The spiritual decolonization is just one of the threads. You still must deal with health and technology, which speaks to our diet and everything, which has been colonized. Our technology and the way in which, of course, we talk about IRK yesterday towards the end. But it's another critical issue that needs to be looked at. Are we saying that the technologies of the West are superior to the technologies of Africa? Or maybe in terms of convenience, yes. In terms of short term, yes. But every technological advancement which is not kosher to ecological conservation, it cannot be technology, it's destruction. So we can't be talking about making more machines, making more cell phones, and say we're technologically advanced. But when you go where the mining of the mineral is happening, more damage is happening there, and it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Because what you are taking out of here, you cannot bring back and replace it. So when you talk about technology, I hope people are not getting carried away to think that pressing buttons and all these things are progressive. They are progressive in the short term, but in the long term, this will be rubbish. Because the amount of chaos that you have created is unmeasurable. I was saying to someone the other day, they said, no, Africa must be developed, especially if you have lived in the West for too long, it must be developed. Then I ask the people, if Africa is developed to the London standards, okay, we've now created another concrete jungle in Sishavane or in Mashoko, somewhere in the village in the bush there. We make it another London.
Yeah, I agree.
First question, what quality of water are we going to be drinking? What quality of air are we going to be breathing? What quality of food are we going to be? What quality of relationships and lives are we going to be having? Are you saying development is having pubs and brothels on every corner and mental clinics on every corner? Is this what we call development? But look at it this way. The people who are owning those businesses in development, ask me where they stay.
I can actually tell you, from a chauffeur, they live basically in urban areas where full of land.
So
they don't live in these jungles at all.
And now the poor people like us, where are we living? We're living in the jungle.
Yeah.
We're living in the open areas. So this whole migration of urbanization must be understood that it is coming as a brainwashing session again to make people think that when they get into a place which does not sleep, lots of lights, they are healthier. No, man, darkness is good for the night, for sleeping. So our spirituality must be decolonized. Our technology and health must be decolonized. We also look at our sports and entertainment. The whole constipation with sporting, which is about $1 billion business. And for me, it is less to do with the sport rather than the thief of time.
It's a distraction.
Keep you busy, doing non-important. Watching movies, scrolling on internet, watching some porn here and there. And between that and that, go to the stadium, do something, and then, but you look at the value of time that these have been able to extract from you. Had they been extracting these things from you while you were getting healthier, I would have been said maybe there's some sort of benefit. But unfortunately, it has just become entertainment, money spending bill. And last but not least, you will actually have the decolonization of our economy. We now talk to the banking and plug in from the metrics, education, creating a new narrative, in agriculture, beginning to supply for our own stocks, ultimately governance. How do we rule ourselves? So if you're supposed to start punching on capitalism, you're just knocking on the economic pillar. The question is that actually the economy is linked to the quality of education you have received, which is informed by the quality of food that you have. Are you healthy enough to study and learn? And what is it that the government will consider in governance, as etc.? What do you spend your extra time doing as your entertainment? So what technologies are you collecting yourself? Ultimately, the whole total human being. What spirituality drives you? Where do you peg and where do you fashion your worldview in terms of coming out of this building, standing there, and you say, there is an African. What makes you an African?
Wow. Yeah, what really makes us like it? Based on what you're saying, so in terms of Africa, because they're African, and most of my work was focused on African back home, because that's basically where we need to build. Because otherwise, if Africa wasn't the way it is, or they mess it up, we won't be here. So, based on what you're saying, how can we make Africa work? Based on what you're saying.
Africa is working. On the contrary, Africa is working. And the fact that we are...
But how do we unplug from the capitalist, the system? That's where the mindset thing, the Western mindset is basically, like you said. I've been in Nigeria recently, and I feel like I feel like I was in London.
And hence, that's where we come in as cultural custodians. To say there's nothing wrong with developing Lagos and Abuja. Nothing wrong with getting a few buildings in Accra, and etc. But I think as we are moving forward, and we are now talking about green energy and real life, we needed to preserve some of our African continent in its rawness,
Fantasy, okay.
and let the process be organic, but be as gentle to the environment, to the preservation. I mean, London here, there used to be animals around here. There's not even one single, except foxes, and that have remained in some rats. That's all that has remained. Now, are we saying that by, and yet this is where it sometimes gets confusing, because these are the same white institutions that are talking about conservation.
Yeah.
In one conference here, they're talking about conservation.
Yeah, I know.
In another conference, they're talking about development. In another conference, they're talking about mining. If you put these three people in one room and say, gentlemen, you are talking about approving mining concessions to dig all this stuff here, like you did doing in Congo. But here you're talking about conservation. And here you're talking about development. How do you marry these three people? They're schizophrenic.
Yeah.
Because their concept of development is vandalism.
Yeah.
And we cannot be here, educated as we are, and we glorify the destruction of our own homes when they have finished destroying our own homes. I was looking at Ghana the other day. The rivers have been flooded with cyanide.
Yeah, Galamsey. Yeah.
Look at the impact of life, flora, aqua, human beings along that.
Yeah.
And this is what you remain with. The gold is in their pockets.
Yeah.
And in their aeroplanes, and they're out of here. They've gone home. Now you remain with stomach problems. You remain with chronic diseases. You remain with an inhabitable environment. Some of these things will take 150 years to remove some of those chemicals that are pumping into the ground. Is this what we are talking about as Africans? You're saying how? It's consciousness. We need to start a campaign of preserving Africa. For example, I want to actually start a campaign on the banning of gold. It may sound crazy, but it does not make sense that you destroy a whole continent only to take up minerals and come and put them in a warehouse here. Okay, here's a strategy in my own small banking world. Okay. I have 10 hectares here of gold. There's enough machineries now that can determine how much gold is here. Okay. And you get the certificate. The gold is already there. You don't need to remove it. Take that to the bank and then transact. Leave the ground where it is. Purchase the ground and leave the ground where it is. You own it. Yeah. So there's no need to be cutting trees and then be talking about extinction of animals, and flowers, and birds, and insects. And yet you are the one again who is destroying the very environment. So if you want 10 million tons of gold, you are told, okay, it's here. And you have the certificate, piece of paper that says it's there. Now take that to the bank with your guarantees and spend. So what is this obsession with vandalism? This is what I'm trying to get at. Yeah. So if you're asking me what can we do to unplug from the matrix, what can we do there's nothing we can do except to preserve it. Because that's the only home that we have. We need a new science. We need a new education. We need a new definition of development. We need a new curriculum of expansion and civilization. We need to redefine what civilization is all about.
So basically, in a nutshell, we need to decolonize everything that we've talked about. Basically, train the garbage bin.
You can't say it better than that. Yeah. You can't say it better than that. Because otherwise, how educated are we to know that this pollutes and yet we pollute?
It's so obvious, it's so obvious that we see it, but we still do it.
That's where me and you must come into the space where we are really relocating, going back home. Yeah. I mean, so far I've planted in my small way, I've done about 700, almost 800 trees. I'm using my borehole water there, doing my traditional houses, planting some indigenous plants and herbs. Yeah. Now create also a birth control center, birthing center for indigenous. I want to see something. I want children that are born and they're not vaccinated. I want to see something. My grandfather lived up to 110 years unvaccinated. What is this obsession with pumping children with injections? By the time these kids grow up, they are drug addicts.
Yeah. It's true though, because that's what you see what happened in Kenya, see what's going on in Uganda, see what they're doing everywhere.
And yet on the IKS, they are indigenous ways.
Okay, let's talk about IKS.
The indigenous ways would be, and IKS again for me. You will need to get a book, that African Questions, African Solution. Okay. Well, I think it will be much better when you are looking at the template of the 7 pillars. Okay. Then afterwards we talk about decolonization, and we're talking it across the whole spectrum. Okay. If you are talking about IKS again, we are talking about it on the entire spectrum.
Yeah.
So it's not, for me, it's not an
Yeah,
isolated.
yeah.
Farmers of Thought is an institution
Yeah.
where we're developing tools for dealing with decolonization. So IKS for me would be, what are the indigenous knowledge systems when it comes to governance? What are the indigenous knowledge systems when it comes to agriculture? What are the indigenous knowledge systems as far as business, as far as education, as far as sports and entertainment, health and technology, ultimately spirituality? But since you're asking specifically on the health one, on the vaccination one I was talking about, how did we use to, we taught the world how to vaccinate. The first form of vaccination, when you get to a new place, put your finger in your mouth, find a clean piece of soil somewhere,
and then
touch it,
yeah.
and tell your body where you are.
Yeah.
The immune system of the body knows how to communicate and relate to the soil. Well, that's what we are made out of.
We lost it.
And immediately after you sit down and you've licked the soil, the next thing you're going to be given is a glass of water.
We lost it.
To water the body and remind the body which water, the soil that you ate, these are the waters that are going to be drinking. And everything you're going to be doing and eating around it is spiritual for me. Therefore, spirituality for me is one of the highest IKS.
Yeah.
People have bundled that into the corner of witchcraft.
Yeah.
But that witchcraft comes from ignorance.
Yeah.
But when you get to knowledge, you'll actually find that those small little things we're doing was actually vaccinations.
Yeah.
Our children, they were born, then the grandmothers would go to the river and then scoop some soil, that muddy soil, in the banks of the river, and some mesh, whatever leaves that are rotting on the side of the river. Then go to the kraal, pick some cow dung, go to the chicken thing, pick some chicken droppings, pick some stuff and mix this whole big soup of mud and rubbish into one dish. Then a young baby is taken and is introduced to the bacteria that is in the environment. And this child will be able to eat that chicken, drink that milk, drink from that river, eat from this soil, because the body has already been introduced. Now you look at that thing and say, yuck.
Yeah.
These Africans, this is yuck, this is yuck. But are you telling me that taking other women's fetuses and making things and punching them into other women, other children, is healthier than you using natural things? I mean, the fact that yours is nicely encapsulated in a tablet doesn't make it cleaner by any means possible. And I think Mama here will
if you can
move the camera towards it. Since we are addressing the women's issues, I think she's in a much better position as the
as my brother said, if you want to tap into what you say in terms of the big. I was speaking to my son this morning because I'm about to have my third grandchild, and we're talking about how they deliver babies in the UK, where they have to lay their backs down, which is not what we used to do back home. Because I remember, I don't even want to explain today and talk about that, because women issues in vaccination, if you don't mind. Because I'm thinking the Western way is perverted. What they're doing in the West is basically not what we used to do back home.
Well, it has been a disturbing journey. The experience that I have is kind of, it's traumatizing because I think the way that my mother was born is different from the way the children of today are born, or different from the way I was born, my own self. So, like you were saying earlier on, that Changambire here was talking about the vaccinations and things like that, about even the giving birth or being in water. I think that's not bad, but there's different ways that they're doing it now, which is not of our indigenous way of doing it.
In every home in ancient times, you'd have a bed stool. A bed stool, which you can also find on the Kemetic charts, which you can also find in the biblical narrative. When Pharaoh is talking about the Israelites, he says, by the time we get there to the women sitting on the stool, we find that they've delivered already. So show me a people on the face of the world that know about the bed stool. They are the owners of the text. So we cannot be taught religion by white people who don't even know what a bed stool looks like.
It's crazy. It's absurd.
So a bed stool was used for many things.
Yes.
Time for information, Gogo. I know some of these things are sacred.
Yeah.
But the world and our African people are on a deathbed. We might as well just say it.
Yeah.
A birth stool was a critical part of female health.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a piece of wood that was open here where a woman could sit, literally squat, so to speak, and she drops the baby. But not only that, a woman can actually deliver herself correctly, like what cows and chickens and goats do, with no assistance. That's why Moses was told, but by the time we get there, she has already delivered. But these days, of course, pregnancy sickness. So the birth stool would be actually used. It aligns the spine.
Yeah, because they have to use epidural these days, which is
We need to allow even our audience here to do some research for themselves.
Yeah.
Go and find out what are the problems in terms of health of children that are born through cesarean section, children that are born when your mother is lying down. What are the complications in spinal problems, head formation, muscle and reflex, and etc. Because every move as the child is coming out is actually a physiological alignment, as it were, activation of brain, muscle, and body to welcoming you into this space where you're going to be needing these muscles and etc. to work. But on the cosmetic section, the birth stool was a health institution for women. Then they would go to the bush and take their shrubs and herbs, put it in a dish, warm or boil up the herbs. Then a woman would sit on the birth stool after going through their monthly cycles, cleanse the whole system. If they wanted to steam, they would steam. If they wanted to smoke, they would smoke. And if they wanted to warm up the pots before the husband came home, so be it. So it's a science.
Yes, it is. I'm listening to you, man, and it's just like music to my ears, man.
Yes, and I think because that practice is no longer, and you get a lot of women that suffer from postnatal depression. What is postnatal depression? What brings postnatal depression to a woman after giving birth?
She did not deliver.
Wow.
And where she does not deliver and she does not breastfeed. And then she complains of breast cancer and cervical cancer and stuff like that. But what do you think happened to all that milk that coagulated in your breast and etc.? What do you think happened to it?
Wow.
So you drank your own milk.
So basically, them not going through a natural process has a massive impact on the body.
So every month when you're drinking tablets and you're no longer going on your periods, so where do you think those eggs are going? Your body wants to flush itself, and it's a system. So, and you have created a sewage tank for yourself by blocking your hormones from flowing.
Wow.
You would rather be breastfeeding your husband at night and giving your child plastic milk.
Wow.
And then when you suffer the catastrophic consequences of breaking natural laws, then becomes an epidemic, a pandemic, a problem. So IKS is a spiritual science, which we as Africans and as custodians, we look at you young people in the infatuation of your own scientific methods it's swallowing these tablets you call
it's craziness, brother, man. It's crazy.
Sickness.
It is, and that's why I'm trying to get my head out around it, because most of everything that we're following in the world today, for me at the moment, none of it makes sense anymore.
Look at even this, what you're carrying on here.
Yeah.
These are cowrie shells.
Yes.
This is a feminine necklace, reminding you of the sacredness of the woman's anatomy.
Yeah.
So there's no way you can be carrying this and then you go and rape a woman, because you are carrying the very sense of I respect the wombs in which they have brought me. This is IKS.
Yes.
We don't have to write books on how must you respect women. But if this had been put by me in a ceremony, and I'll tell you what this represents, then by the time you put it on, it is a bell on your heart that reminds and constantly tells you the people that you must preserve, protect. And I don't know how I can tell even a doctor who has a PhD.
Oh, they're the hardest ones.
When you don't know, just shut up.
Yeah. They're the hardest ones. The most educated are the most
uneducated.
Most educated. I agree.
Yeah.
My sister, what's the 3 takeaways from your trip to the UK this time? What's the 3 takeaways? What have you learned? What can you share with us?
Wow. Having to spend time with almost powerful, two spiritual leaders. I've also learned a lot from them. Uplifting, energizing. I don't know how I actually, because I would have probably just crumbled if I was on my own. But it was very uplifting and energizing just being with Changambire Maponga here and Professor that was small.
Yeah.
And the audience, they were phenomenal. Everybody was just, I don't have the words for it, but I learned just a lot, and I'll go back with a big smile, I should say, and also the experience was just amazing. The experience was amazing. It's the teachings of tomorrow as well.
Yeah.
Everybody was just extremely nice.
Okay.
I'm talking about even maybe spiritually.
Yeah.
We didn't feel any tension. Although we were mobbed at some time, but
I saw that.
yeah, and my fear was on him, not my own self.
I could see you trying to protect him, but
Yes,
I saw that.
But it's just been a wonderful journey to remember.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful journey to always remember. It wasn't just like a plain journey. It came with a lot of understanding teachings, and I got also to hear Professor Small speaking live because I've always been on Zoom meetings with him.
Okay.
But having to meet Professor Small, in person, it was overwhelming. Yes.
I was hoping to actually have an interview with him because I called him, but obviously I had to go back. So at least I'm glad you actually met him. So which is good. Both of you met him because I saw your video with him when you were in Birmingham. So brilliant. My sister, Mothers of Nations. Can you tell us more about that, please?
We a fairly new organization.
Okay.
Well, it's not my first organization. My first organization was called NIAC, and it fell apart, I think, in the 90s.
Okay.
So I gave birth to another one. We birthed another one called Axoni, which is doing very, very well at the moment in Northern Ireland.
Okay.
And decided also that, because Axon is only catering for the community in Northern Ireland. So that's where the idea of having Nations of Mother Earth came about, so that I would be able to reach out, not just in Northern Ireland, but reaching out in Africa, America. I mean, we are everywhere, worldwide, and based on helping underprivileged people. And we're mainly focusing on elderly people. We have a lot of our elderly people that suffer from dementia, and the awareness has not reached out to us in Africa. Dementia people, our elderly people get killed. They're accused of being witches because they wander around naked, and they are asked questions like, "Oh, are you a witch?" Because only witches,
Yeah, can I just stop you in terms of dementia? So would I say is that part of the Western, is it the Western effect, and is it the food? Why would Africans have dementia?
We never used to have that.
So what happened?
I don't. That's what I go back to Changambire Maponga when he talks about the vaccines and the type of food that we have been eating. Why would you eat backdated food? I mean, you open a can of baked beans, beef, and all sorts of rubbish, then we store that in your stomach and believe that you'll be okay because you don't even know what you're putting in your stomach. So we have eaten baked, dated food, and that baked dated food, I think it has caused a lot of harm.
I would like to expand on that, on the diseases of the old people, that it comes in multifaceted. It's a response to series of wrong decisions that we have made. We have lived in town all our lives. Then we left town when we were 70, 80 years old, 60, 70 years old. At retirement, you are dumped at the village. You have left your children in Europe. You're lucky if your wife is still with you. You're lucky if your husband is still with you. Then you are dumped all by yourself. It's a lonely life. No one cares for you. Your money is finished. Your health is finished. Sometimes you can even lose your mind. As a man who has built palaces, and we've known people here. I was just talking to somebody this morning. People who have built palaces in London, they're now living in a shack in the bottom part of town, and the children are in Canada, some are in Europe, the grandchildren are studying in Japan, and the old man is all by himself, falling apart. Actually, we lost another old man this morning. The daughter is in Ireland, and the old man is all by himself in some farm somewhere, collapsing. And he's dead. He died this morning as we're talking right now. And now so even when you're talking about dementia, those that don't suffer dementia are in depression, they're in malnutrition, they're in diabetes, they're lonely, and some of them are homeless. So it's a whole conglomerate of bad decisions that Western civilization and commercialization, they pat you on the back when you're still healthy. Well done, my boy. Well done, my boy. You're doing very well. You're doing very well. Until the day they tell you that, hey, chief, we no longer need your services, man. Your eyes are no longer, you're sleeping on the wheel. Then for the first time, it's like someone is slept on the back to wake up and discover you've wasted 40, 50 years of your life, and you're 5 years looking into the grave. That is traumatic. So it's not just dementia. It could be a variety of people, some even suicide.
Yes. The loneliness as well, because we have adopted the English way of living. We dropped our culture, adopted the English culture, and our parents, we don't. It's like a tree. If you don't water the roots, you don't expect that tree or the branches to grow. The leaves will dry, and we don't see it that way. We are not looking after our parents, but we are looking after somebody else's parents. We come here to be in nursing homes, and we push our own aside.
Okay, guys, I think thanks for your time. Before you go, I'd like both of you to actually help us plug Coal City, the restaurant that we're in. Just give them a plug out to customers, for them to reach out. They've been great to us. Yeah. So if you want to give them a shout out, please.
When you get into London, right here in Tottenham, there's a nice, cool place. They call it Coal City. I've had 3 meals right here. Most beautiful. The lady who runs this place here, out of this world. Genuine, full Nigerian food, egusi, pepper soup. But yesterday one was very hot, very hot. But there's a beautiful place, and they have this venue also for our after parties. So you have special birthday parties, you have special functions that you want to do, you want to take your friends out. The only way we're going to come out of this mess, when our brothers and sisters open up businesses, be it clothes, be it food, be it cars, be it what. When you hear that a brother or a sister has opened up a business, the only thing we can do is to make sure that we support each other. There's no way my brother will do better until my money is with him. There's no way he will do better until his money is with him. And by the time that money comes back to me, I'll be a richer person. So please, if you are in Tottenham, come to Coal City. Beautiful restaurant. They open, I think, 7 days a week. It's open here. Come here. Next time I come here, I'll be right here. I even took some takeaways home. Yeah.
Well, he said it all. I'm left with nothing to say.
But the cooking, the quality of the food.
The quality of the food, absolutely good. I mean, amazing. Sweet pepper soup was hot, like he said. But
Amala?
I think egusi, amala, well, we did some takeaway as well because we couldn't just go home without food. It was too nice. It was way too nice. I've been going to few places, 1 or 2 places, but I will give her 10 out of 10. I'll give her 10 out of 10.
Brilliant.
There's nothing more to say because Changambire here, he's already.
Guys,
Yes.
Thank you very much
Thank
for your
you.
time, my brother, man. It's been a pleasure, my sister.
Thank you very much.
We
Thank
appreciate
you. So much. We do appreciate it.
For all our viewers, basically, Changambire's been in the UK. It's been an absolutely brilliant time. We've enjoyed his knowledge, his wisdom, and my sister, they've shared wisdom and knowledge with us. Please tap into the Farmers of Thoughts where you can actually read more, hear more about our brother's work.
We'll make some arrangement for the books and etc. With the radio station.
Yeah, brilliant.
If people want to order, maybe get in touch with you. I can send in some stock and we can distribute from there.
So you can hear that, guys. So in terms of these books, basically, just reach out to the Emerging Alkebulan. We'll be in touch with my brother and we'll see what we can sort out.
We can work with people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We actually we got connection with. Yeah. That's fine. Fine. Okay. Thanks for your time, guys, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, even though we ain't got time, I want to ask you off camera. You said we got to finish, so